YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, and I've got some more, well, I have a replay that was sent to me, actually, in the midst of my Hannibal at the Gate screenshot contest. I got an email from the player where I got that Baktrian Peltist build from, and let me show you all this here, and Avitohol of Agartha, I guess is his name. So, anyway, he's playing as Athens in this battle, and his opponent's playing as Baktria, and his opponent's actually using, I kid you not, the self-same army that I used with him. So apparently this army is pretty common, or they set this up, you know, as a chance to try and build counters. I don't remember exactly what it said in his email, but he brought Athens as a counter build, which is probably not real intuitive for most folks, since Athens is definitely not a power faction, and Baktria most certainly is a power faction. His build has a lot of hoplites. Up front, he's got a couple militia hoplites. Behind them, he's got a line of thorax hoplites. He's got about 4 or 5 of his own peltist, and then in the very back, he's got a line of mercenary veteran hoplites. His cav is just citizen cav. His general is actually in a thorax hoplite unit, and he's got a couple of Tarentine cav too. So a couple interesting things to note about the Tarentine cav is that it's really nothing special by way of statistics, except for a couple things to note. It does have 80 health, which is pretty high for a skirmish horse, I think, and it has 50 armor, which isn't bad too, and part of that armor is actually a shield. So these guys are going to be fairly resistant to low armor piercing missiles like archers. So an interesting choice. And then of course scale thorax hoplite, or thorax hoplites right here. These guys have a lot of attack for their price, and a good bonus for his cav, which actually does make them a fairly threatening unit, and they're also not very easy to take down with missiles. And that's where his general is at too. So, and his, obviously the citizen cav is just to have a little bit of mobility, and you can see that he's keeping it well within the protection of all of his spears, knowing that Baktria is going to have an advantage when it comes to cavalry. So Baktria, again, has brought that self-same army you saw from me before, 6 Baktrian peltist, or sometimes you bring 5 and then an extra levy pikeman. He's got 5 levy pikemen, 2 Hellenic cataphracts, 1 Indian armored elephant, 2 mercenary Scythian horse archers, and 2 Baktrian noble horse. Yes, I do believe that's it. Yep. So, definitely the common Baktria meta build that you're going to see. And some of you will ask me what meta build means. I don't know exactly, you know, I'm just repeating what I've heard in context, but I'm pretty sure that it indicates a build that is common in the current state of the game, or a build that is built around, I guess just, built around the knowledge of the current state of the game, which in this case is that peltists are very powerful, and so are elephants. So this build capitalizes on the fact that the cheap infantry allows this Baktrian player to bring extremely good cavalry and skirmishers. So that's pretty much what it is. So you can see the skirmishing actually taking place. These Tarentine cav are under archer fire, and those archers are using precision shot. They're not on heavy shot yet. They probably should be if they want to cause any damage. You can see that this is still 60 out of 60 men. Not a single archer kill yet. And that's from those shields that I was just telling you all about. In fact, you can see arrows stuck in this guy's shield. And now that these guys have used precision shot, they're actually going to be pretty tired, whereas the Tarentine cav's still fresh. And it would actually win in a melee engagement as well. So, it looks like, I'm just going to call this guy Agartha here. It looks like Agartha is being defensive, which is smart. This is a somewhat defensive build too. I mean, somewhat. It can be used offensively as well. But it's harder to use pikes offensively than it is hoplites. And to be honest, there's no real reason for him to be offensive. His opponents brought these mercenary Scythian horse archers, which he's going to want to pay for. So he's going to take his time and try and pick around and get some kills with them. But the thing is it's just, it's not going to work real well. These mercenary horse archers are great if your opponent buys into it and sends his cav out. If they don't, they really don't do a lot of damage. And you have to determine, well, what do I do with them? There's no elephants to target them at. The only infantry that's there is pretty heavy infantry. Now, it could switch to heavy shot and try and get some shots on his heavy infantry, but that's where these Tarentine cav come in. They're light, they're fast, and they're somewhat arrow resistant, so they can keep his horse archers at bay and you know, help them cause minimal damage to his own army. So this army really is kind of an interesting counter build. There's a lot of units here that have an excellent bonus versus cav and elephants. Now the elephants alone can plow through a lot of hoplites, but it's unlikely that the one unit of elephants can really tear through this entire army of hoplites. And all you need is 1 or 2 units of javelin men to be firing while elephants are caught up in hoplites, and they will generally put them down relatively quick. But these are armored elephants, and as you can see at 945 health, you got a lot of hit points to knock out before those guys go down. But look right here. Agartha's getting some nice shots with his peltist into these Hellenic cataphracts, which I'm surprised did not charge them. I think they would have been a better charge target than these citizen cav, because by not charging these peltists, now these peltists get all kinds of shots. And even if these Hellenic cataphracts don't die, they take a lot of HP damage, which means they'll die easier on their next run. And then right here, these horse archers probably should have charged in, but they're probably scared too because he can counterattack with these Tarentine cav. So again, I like the build that Agartha has chosen here, and then all he has to do is wait on hasty attacks like this, where these Baktrian noble horse get mixed up with his men too close to his own infantry support, and he's able to use his javelins and his spearmen to put these guys down. Now, the Baktrian player is not being real aggressive with these troops here. He's kind of just sitting back defending this area. If you're going to attack with your cav like he is, he really ought to push, and should have been doing it already. He should have timed these attacks. That way he has pressure from here and the front, but the thing is he doesn't. And so right now, basically, Agartha just gets to move defensively, and it really nerfs down the strength of these cataphracts when they're not being used on targets that they're best against. They're best at taking down relatively expensive cav, and you know, just stuff like that. And fighting against hoplites, which is all they have the option to do, is just not the fight where they're going to excel. Cataphracts just really aren't all that good versus infantry, unless it's very light infantry. It's not like Rome 1 where they were pretty good. See him here retreating his Bactrians, and he's losing a unit of Hellenic cataphracts back here. Just getting mobbed, and it's hard for him to disengage from that fight because Agartha's got some of his own units that are, you know, kind of in there with him, like the citizen cav. It'll follow the cataphract as it retreats and gets more kills. So I think that his opponent made a mistake by engaging early. It's still, though, this is a pretty good counter build, because even if he moves up with his peltist, he has a lot of ammo with these Baktrian peltists. And these guys are tough to kill with other missiles. So if he does move up with his Baktrian peltist, he's faced with an option. Throw his javelins at these closer units, like these militia hoplites, which aren't going to be worth it. Or throw them at the thorax hoplites. Again, all these guys are in pretty long, thin lines, which does make them somewhat vulnerable to cav, but it also makes them even more resistant to missiles, which hoplites are good for anyway. And if he starts throwing at his infantry without having killed all of Agartha's peltist, his own peltist are going to take some damage. But if he sits there and tries to kill Agartha's peltist with his own, then that gives Agartha a chance to start splitting up and maybe taking flanks. So, I mean, there's just a lot of things to consider here, and I like this. It's a good counter build. It may not win every time against this type of meta build, but it's definitely, I think, well thought out in the sense that it's not real easy for the Baktrian player to deal with. And of course, it all depends on whose hands these armies are in and, you know, whatnot. But see, right here's what I'm talking about. Agartha's, check this out, his peltists are in range of these pikes, but the enemy peltists are only in range of these militia hoplites because of the way he's pushed them back. And pikes really can't be used defensively. If the Baktrian pushes forward, Agartha can just fall back like this. He can just pull his army back further. He does have this cav behind him that can kind of pin him in, but it's still just very easy to get away from pikes. And look, this guy, he gets some nice rear charges, and I don't know whether Agartha does this on purpose or he's just, whoops, I forgot over here, look, pin down the elephants and then just uses a couple of javelins to finish him off. I should have caught this charge earlier, but yeah, anyway, you can see he just mobs them with heavy hoplites, his heaviest ones, thorax and mercenary veteran hoplites, and then he just kept a couple of javelin units handy. Even though some of his javelin units got attacked by those horse archers, he was able to at least just get one pitching javelins in here, and that's really all it took. The elephant kill rates are slower here, and the player with the elephants wasn't able to really keep them moving. And at this point, it's really looking pretty good for Agartha. The problem with killing is, so here's another strength of the Baktrian peltists. They're strong enough that they don't die immediately in a fight with cav, and the other units can just throw javelins and kill the cav. So these big blobs of peltists look like easy kills, but these guys don't go down quite as easy as the peltist in Rome 1 did. So it's something to be aware of. They're actually fairly challenging to kill. And then one by one now he's able to get in positions where he can hurt enemy cav and enemy pikes. So like right here, he's got these horse archers pinned, and he's charging hoplites towards the back of this pike unit. And the pike unit just doesn't get kills fast or effectively versus hoplites, unless you just charge your hoplites straight into him. And even then, it's not really great. But see, like right here, these militia hoplites, it doesn't really even matter. He's going to pull them back, though. But I mean, it's just, now he can get all these different positions. Check it out, thorax hoplites from behind. Again, the attack level, hoplites are definitely not like high kill units, but a hoplite with a 38 attack for the price that you get these guys at is pretty good. Pretty darn good, actually. So yeah, now this guy's in trouble because he can get pinned from both sides. Same thing, now you just outmaneuver the pikes. And the javelins can be chased around by your cav, so that they really can't be effective. And at this point you can see the morale of the Baktrian player starting to waver because all of his expensive units are gone. And these javelins are not real high morale units. So like a few flaming missiles or an outflanking charge or something like that will rout these guys really easy now at this point. I love the outflanking maneuvers to take down pikes. Definitely kind of a classic point of Total War that's always been very fun for me. Again, these pikes, very strong from the front, very vulnerable when surrounded. And then, yeah, again, all these peltas back here, still very strong units, and Agartha doesn't have any cav left, but it doesn't really matter at this point. He's got so much infantry left and some of his own peltas that these Baktrian peltas won't be able to just kite and turn the tide of the battle. So they've already used quite a few javelins as well. And he used quick reload as well, so now his guys are going to actually start getting tired faster. So that was also a mistake. You don't want to use quick reload unless your guys are able to just stand still right after they use it, so that fatigue doesn't get you. But I mean, look how many men he's got. He can now spread out and surround and capture all of these peltas. They won't be able to get around his lines. We'll see what happens here. We'll see if the Baktrian player just gives in or if he keeps trying to kite. His own line peltist have caught some of the Baktrian peltist. Yeah, definitely got some morale issues going. And then over here, these thorax hoplites. Now he's throwing flaming javelins here for some reason. I don't know if that's a mistake on his part, like maybe he just had the wrong one selected, but don't throw the flaming javelins at this point. You'd want to be throwing all normal ones because they're going to get the most damage. It does do a lot of morale damage, but I mean, hoplites have pretty high morale, and it's going to take more than flaming javelins to get them to rout. So that's probably a mistake on the point of the Baktrian's case. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and thanks to the Agartha player for sending this in to me and not only beating me with that build so I could learn about it, but then he sent this build in so that you all could get some ideas of how to counter this stuff. So I really appreciate him sending that in. It was good. I enjoyed it. And if you all like this kind of thing, maybe we'll try and do this submission type replay stuff more often. I had done it at one point on Shogun 2 and it was fun. But you can see there how he was able to use that army to take down the Baktria meta build. Interesting build. Hope you all enjoyed that. HeirofCarthage signing off for now.